Okay, so we're going to dive into this incredible story about how to reverse the impossible. Seriously, it's about bringing a dead river back to life. And it all starts not with some grand government plan, but with a single, sharp challenge from a village elder.
So how do you bring a dead river back to life? You know, it sounds like something out of a myth, right? But in the dry, dusty landscapes of rural India, a man named Rajendra Singh faced this very real, very desperate problem. And he found a surprisingly simple and very real answer.
And this one sentence right here, it changed everything for Rajendra Singh. He showed up in drought-stricken Rajasthan back in 1984, thinking he'd help out with healthcare and education. But this elder told him straight up that he was completely missing the point. The real crisis wasn't a lack of schools. It was a lack of water.
13. Get this. That's the number of rivers, some of them had been bone dry for more than 60 years, that Singh and the local communities managed to revive. They brought them back to a perennial, year-round flow. I mean, how is that even possible?
Well, the answer, and you might find this surprising, it doesn't begin with a massive high-tech government project. It started with humility. It started by going back to ancient wisdom and a very simple earthen structure.
So instead of trying to fight nature with these giant concrete dams, Singh's whole approach was to work with it. He helped communities bring back these small earthen check dams called jihads. The concept is, honestly, it's genius because it's so simple. You just slow down the powerful monsoon rains, and you give that water time to seep back into the earth, recharging the wells and aquifers from the ground up.
Now, you have to understand this was a complete 180 from the standard engineering playbook. The old way was always one giant, expensive dam, controlled by experts hundreds of miles away. This new way, it was a decentralized network of thousands of small, community-built solutions that actually worked in harmony with the local landscape.
Okay, but here's the thing. The jihads, those were just the physical tool. The real secret sauce, the ingredient that made this entire transformation happen, it wasn't about the ponds at all. It was about the people.
And here is the absolute key, the detail that made it all work. This wasn't a handout. It wasn't some charity project. The communities had to put their own skin in the game, about 30% of the cost plus all the volunteer labor. That one simple rule created this powerful, unbreakable sense of ownership. This wasn't the government's pond, it was their pond.
Singh had this incredible insight. He saw that a lack of water wasn't just one problem. Nope. It was the first domino in what he called a cascade of scarcity. You know, when the wells run dry, girls have to drop out of school to go fetch water, farms fail, and entire families have to leave and migrate to city slums. He realized that if you could fix the water problem, you could reverse that whole flow and create a cascade of benefits instead.
And look at this. You can see that reverse cascade in action right here in the numbers. Girls' school attendance. Before, practically zero. And after, it shoots up to 75%. And the reason is so simple. With water right there in the village, girls got their childhoods back. They weren't spending their entire day just walking for water anymore.
So what they stumbled upon here was bigger than just water. It was like they found a master key, a way of thinking that connects the dots between water, education, people's jobs, and even how they govern themselves. It's about seeing the whole system.
Now, there's a name for this. It's called systems thinking. And whether he called it that or not, Singh totally got it. He knew a village isn't just a list of problems you can tick off one by one. It's a complex web. And if you can pull on one fundamental thread, in this case water, you can change the pattern of the entire web for the better.
And what's so cool is how their approach grew over time. I mean, it started out super grassroots, right? All community knowledge, very low tech. But they didn't get stuck there. They started bringing in modern tools, like using GIS for planning, and later, remote sensing to actually monitor their success from space. It's this perfect blend of ancient wisdom and modern science.
This idea of community ownership, well, it evolved into something even more profound. As the Arvori River came back to life, the 72 villages along its banks did something I've never heard of before. They created their own river parliament, the Arvari San said, to democratically manage their shared, precious resource.
And this wasn't some debating club. No, this parliament wrote its own, legally binding water constitution.
And just look at these rules they came up with. They banned new wells, they banned water-guzzling crops like sugarcane, they set seasonal limits on pumping water from the river. They were actively managing their own ecosystem, tying human behavior directly to the health of the river.
Okay, so you see how this story is so much bigger than just one river in India, right? It's a model, it's a playbook. And the real question is, how can we use this powerful way of thinking to tackle other complex problems? Turns out there's a kind of universal playbook for it.
So how does this playbook work? It's really a framework for thinking. First, you draw the right boundary. For them, it was the whole watershed, not just one village. Then you identify the stocks, like groundwater, and the flows, like rainfall and pumping. Then you map the feedback loops, like how more johads leads to more groundwater, which means more farming is possible. The real magic, though, is in finding the deepest leverage points, the places where a small push can create a huge shift.
In this chart, this just shows the power of this kind of thinking perfectly. You've got two regions that look pretty similar on the surface, right? Both are semi-arid plains. But the root cause of their problem, what we call the binding constraint, it's totally different. So the process is the same, but the solution is tailored and completely different.
So in one area, free electricity was causing farmers to just pump and pump and pump, draining the groundwater. The real leverage point there wasn't building more stuff, it was just changing the electricity schedule. But in the other place, you had leaky canals making the fields all waterlogged. The lever there? Managing drainage. It proves there's no magic bullet solution, but there is a magic bullet process for finding the right one.
And that really is the ultimate point here. Rajendra Singh didn't just bring back some rivers. He created what you could call a civic curriculum. He took the lessons from one tiny village and turned them into a roadmap, a model for change that could be adapted and used across the entire country.
So in the end, the story of India's waterman kind of leaves us with a challenge, doesn't it? It asks us to look at the really tough, complex problems in our own backyards, not as these impossible walls, but as systems that are just waiting for us to understand them. So the question for you is, what's your hidden leverage point? What's that one thing you could change that could bring everything else back to life?